What's going on, guys? Welcome back to NolanTCG, and we are back here today for another deck profile, and this time it's for Emancipator Gem Knight FTK. So I do apologize for this list being a digital list as opposed to a physical in-person list. I have always had all of these cards, and I got the inspiration to put this together again, started slapping up profiles and stuff, worked through some lists, worked through different combos and things, and then ultimately I went to put it together in person and was missing 3 cards that I've always had, just can't find them. I've dug through all my bulk, went through all my binders, ultimately they just weren't there, so I do apologise for that. Odds on next format we will bring this one back, we'll tweak it up a little bit. Odds on, given that there is certain things going on with Despia, we could maybe work in some Despia, but I do believe that will take away the consistency of the FTK, so that probably is not going to happen. But yeah, if you are keen on seeing that, do remember to drop down below and hit that subscribe button if you are new here, because we are always happy to have new people on the channel. This is one of the decks that I hold near and dear and will always be happy to mess around with, and let's get into this profile. Okay, so now we'll go through the deck profile. Starting us off is, of course, 3 copies of Lapis. It is pretty much required for this entire deck to go around. You're going to be using it to go into your Lapis Lazuli to then do the burn damage that you need. You can also loop it pretty heavily with other cards that you're playing. Next off, you have 2 copies of Armadillo. Typically, you're going to normal summon your Armadillo and search for your Obsidian or your Lapis, whichever one you may require for your combo. Lapis is a little bit easier to access than your Obsidian, so you'll probably want to search that Obsidian. Then we go into our Emancipator line, so we've got 3 copies of Analyzer. This is probably your alternative normal summon to the Armadillo. Like, you're either going to be normal summoning the Analyzer or the Armadillo. Then we get into our Extender, so we're playing 3 copies of Kawaki Mirror Supplier, because with the Armadillo or the Analyzer, you can get into Gallant Granite and search out your Researcher, and hopefully you're having a fun time. After that, we have 3 copies of Gem Knight Obsidian, so of course you're going to be using this fusion and summoning from the hand to extend onto the board. You're going to be getting your Lapis out and really trying to get it onto board as many times as you can. As you can see at the end of the deck profile, there is a reason to that. Then next off, we play 1 copy of Sentry Soldier of Stone. There will be situations that come up where you want to bring this back onto the board with one of your Emancipators in order to go into Garden Rose Maiden. Then we have, of course, the next of our Emancipators, 3 copies of Seeker, the second worst one. This is what you're going to hopefully be extending with your Analyzer and your Researcher. Maybe a Raptite, but yeah. It's not the best one in the world. Same with Analyzer. Researcher all the way. Next off, we play 2 copies of Crystal Rose, though. It can loop itself back onto the board, copy names of other stuff, which means it's toolboxing your Lapis out of the deck and then becoming that. You can also use it to get your Lazuli, which will then allow your Lazuli to trigger to add your Lapis back, because this sends for effect. Next off, we have 3 copies of Researcher. This is what pretty much is going to hopefully make your deck function. If you open Researcher or Black Garden, hopefully you have the FTK. Then, of course, last of the monster lineup, 2 copies of Lazuli. I've said what it does before. You're going to be typically sending it for effect to add back your Lapis. Then we get into our spells. We have, of course, 3 copies of Unexpected Die. Just trying to get that Lapis out as quickly as possible. Also, like, Unexpected Die plus another Gem Knight in hand. Hopefully you have a Researcher. That's odds on the FTK. Then we have 3 copies of Fusion. If you open it, cool, because the Phantom Quartz can search your Obsidian instead. If you don't open it though, this is typically what your Phantom Quartz is going to be searching. Then we have 3 copies of Signs after that. It's not once per turn, it's a free Monster Reborn type extender. For our Power 1-ofs, we got 1 Terraforming, 1 Monster Reborn, and 1 Called by the Grave. Then 3 copies of Black Garden, of course, because this facilitates your FTK. Ultimately, you're going to be using the Lapis Lazuli burn effect for each monster on the field, a special summon monster on the field, of course. And that does mean Black Garden's tokens will count towards that, which is the reason why you're using the Black Garden for the FTK. Then we get into our extra deck. So, of course, we've got 1 copy of Lady Brilliant Diamond. You're typically going to be summoning this and then turning itself into a Master Diamond to get extra bodies on board for the Black Diamond, for the Black Garden. Then, of course, your Master Diamond, you're going to use it to clone your Lapis Lazuli and do more burn damage. You've got the 2 copies of Gem Knight Zircona. This is just here for cycling through your cards. So say, for example, you'll notice in the combo, we use it with the Gem Knight Fusion and Obsidian to get a Lapis onto board and necessarily to trigger 2 Black Garden summons. So you've got the 1 summon from summoning back the Lapis and the 1 summon for summoning the Zircona. You just use it to essentially toolbox out the different aspects of your deck to just slap onto board. You can also use it to clear stuff like Crystal Rose out of your hand. It also is used typically to get Crystal Rose back. So you'll try and get it off board, get your Crystal Rose back. Fun times. Then we play 2 copies of Lapis Lazuli. It's all that's needed. 1 to do the initial burn. You can send the other and copy it if that's the way you're going. Otherwise, you can just use the second one, the original one, for a fusion summon for your Phantom Quartz, for your Brilliant Diamond or your Master Diamond. Of course, they are the same fusion requirement. Then, of course, we have last off one copy of Seraph Knight. This isn't the most necessary card in the deck. You can use it to get your Crystal Rose out of hand, if that's the way you want to go, and then you can, say, normal summon another Adamancipator in hand that you don't necessarily have access to. But yeah, that's typically what you're using that for. Then we get to our synchros, so we've got the one Dragite for the negation, even though we're not playing the water, so typically you'll need to get Hulk into grave to be doing that. When you are going this line of play, typically you've used the Hulk or Fibrax. Then we've got one copy of Raptite after that. This is here just for more free extension, just so you get the 4 and the 6 with your supplier. You would normally do that if you've already Hulked though, because you want to be going into your Garden Rose Maiden instead, which is next off. We have the one Garden Rose Maiden, because this searches your Black Garden. Then we get into our links, so we've got one copy of Appaloosa, one copy of Nightmare Unicorn. These are here, so the Appaloosa's here for negations on your standard end board if you don't get through the FTK. And then the Nightmare Unicorn's here to condense board. When you're trying, say you've opened Signs and a way to get to Hulk, you can go into the Hulk into the Unicorn with the Researcher or whatever you've summoned off the Hulk, and then you can Signs back that card, stack the deck, and then hopefully away you go from there. And then last off, one copy of Phantom Quartz. It's not necessarily needed at multiples. You're just simply going to be using this to add, and then using its effect to shuffle back from Banished Engrave to Fusion Summon. It's very, very good for this deck. And then we have last off one copy of Gallant Granite. It's rare that you're actually going to be using this, however it does get you a Researcher, and Researcher can help you extend. Okay, so first off here, we have a replay where we're going to FTK without Black Garden in the opening hand. So we're going to be needing to search this, which is the reason why we've got our level 2s. This seems like a very, very good hand, because of course you've opened 2 Adamancipator cards that all like both get free summons onto the board, and you've opened Obsidian, which is going to remain in hand, which is very key. And of course the one wants to read 1 for extension, but we'll go through the combo here. So of course you're just going to start off with your Obsidian, summoning your Researcher and summoning your Seeker. You'll start milling off their effects. Hopefully they all hit. This deck is of course a lottery. Hitting Crystal Rose here is going to be very good. When I was testing this part, I did have the Dragite still in the deck, but I felt it wasn't necessary. So now we get into the Quartz, which gets the Fusion. We can now also use our Researcher. Researcher's going to hit Supplier, which we can now turn into the level 6. However, before we do that, we're going to go into our Garden Rose Maiden to get the Black Garden, so that we can start getting those tokens to the opponent's board. And now they start coming down. So you've got your Raptite. Raptite's going to net you another summon. In quite a good way, it hits the one we haven't used yet for the Adamancipators, which does mean we're going to generate more summons, which should get us to our Lapis as well. Getting more tokens to the opponent's board. You can already see the FTK is pretty well settled at this point. We're well into the FTK now. We still have a Phantom Quartz summon back with the Banish. And then we have that loop of the Gem Knight Fusion as well. Crystal Rose will touch down just to give us that bit of extra damage. We'll use that Lazuli, get back the Lapis. Now we'll start doing some burn. So we've got ourselves 5/5. Activate that. Get ourselves the Brilliant Diamond. That'll get Master. Making sure we're overextending a little bit here to make sure we do as much damage as possible. But that's game there. Okay, so next off we have our next hand, of course. So this is going to be a little bit more awkward. We haven't opened just free extension for days. We do have an Armadillo in hand that's going to probably be dead. Then we've got one copy of Lapis. This will come in handy. One Supplier for the free extension, and one Seeker, which is what our normal summon's going to be. And of course we have the Signs as well, which is going to extend us a little bit through what we need. So we're going to start off with the Seeker. Seeker's going to hit the Crystal Rose here. For the Crystal Rose, we're going to be sending off our Lapis, of course. We're going to use the Signs to get back it, so that we can get into the Phantom Quartz as quickly as possible. Then our Supplier can touch down on board. So now Raptite's going to get us... odds on probably the Researcher there. The Researcher's going to... yeah, the Researcher, of course, is going to help us extend more. Hitting Crystal Roses, not being once per turn. But then we're also just going to get the Centrus Elder of Stone, because it's better. We are not going to get to summon it back here, because we're going to make a plant. But the plant's giving us Black Garden, and Black Garden is going to help us FTK for days. So we're just going to be looping our Zakonas here. I may well have been testing 3 Zakona at this point as well, so that is something to keep in mind. That is an option that you can flex into. Now we're going to be shuffling back to get ourselves the Lady Brilliant Diamond. And there you can see we have game. It was a little bit awkward as the way we went through that, but we did end up getting to the FTK in the end. Probably went into the Lady Brilliant a bit too early here, and the Master Diamond probably touched the board earlier than it needed to. But we did end up getting through there, thanks to the Crystal Rose coming in clutch and becoming the Lapis, so that we can loop the Gem Knight Fusion, of course, and get ourselves the Lapis Lazuli, inflicting big burn damage. Okay, so now we have our last replayer. So of course we've opened one of the bad Adamantispators, not the good one, which means we won't be able to touch board with our Lapis. But we have opened double signs, which is going to help us extend right through here. So starting off, we normal the Analyzer. Analyzer's going to flip some cards up. Typically, you'll always go for the Crystal Rose, unless you desperately need to go for something else. But now here's where we're going to Hulk play, get the Supplier off. That'll get us into our Raptite. Of course, now we can Signs back that Researcher, and that Researcher is going to be extending a lot. Given that we're doing that, I did choose the Gem Knight Obsidian in that line of play, just because it guaranteed us a 3, which would get us to a Black Garden. Okay, now we'll use that second Signs, get us our Crystal Rose back. Now we're going to start slapping down those tokens on board. Recur some more Lapises. We've looped through all 3 at this point, and now we're going to get into our Quartz, which will get us our Gem Knight Fusion. And again, you can probably pretty clearly see where the FTK is going to be coming from here. We're going to loop Zirconia a few times, just to make sure that it's getting used. Get those tokens onto the board. Now we've got those engraved, so we can start bringing back our Crystal Rose as well. Sending off that Lazuli, gets us back our Lapis. Get back our Gem Knight Fusion. Pay the 1,000. Get our Master Diamond. And then that's game on board. Too easy. Big FTKs. And we can keep resolving some effects after damage is done. So that will wrap us up here for our 3 replays. I'm sure you can see the way it is. It's not as consistent as you'd think it is. I've shown off 3 replays where the hands varied, but you always have some kind of access to a Black Garden play or the Adamantipator line. If you do hard open Black Garden, typically just a hand of Gem Knights and a way to get 2 of them on board, or just Gem Knight Fusion, will get you through the FTK. But in situations where that's not the case, and you just kind of typically open 5 Gem Knight related cards, life's going to be a bit difficult, and the things aren't going to combo off quite as well as you'd like it to be. But you can still tend to set up some smaller things. You can get into your Appaloosa. That's essentially what you're going to be looking at doing then. You can consider playing something like a Hope Harbinger if that's something that tickles your boat, floats your fancy. However, you're supposed to say that little sentence because I've forgotten what the euphemisms were for that. But yeah, you can do that. That's always an option. But that will wrap us up here for this one. As always, if you do have any recommendations or things you would change, do make sure to comment them down below. And as always, I've been Ben from NolanTCG, and have a good afternoon, everybody.